Welcome to the first of four in a series of videos, discussions, topics, panel discussions, however you'd like to refer to it, about what Imagine Learning has dubbed curriculum-informed AI. I am Sean Haas. I'm the Director of Creative Services in Marketing for Imagine Learning. And with me today is Jason and Adam. And Jason, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are.
Thanks, Sean. Yes, I'm Jason Fournier, VP of Product Management for our AI initiatives and data here at Imagine Learning. And my primary responsibility in the organization is helping to set out our AI strategy and to bring to life new features and product offerings that use AI to improve outcomes in the classroom. Adam?
Thanks, Jason. My name's Adam. I'm a senior product manager in Jason's team. Started my career as a high school maths teacher, and then most recently, before joining Imagine Learning, founded an edtech startup that was making teacher-facing AI tools. And the newest member of Imagine Learning amongst this group, I've been here 6 months and primarily have been integrating those tools into Imagine Learning's products.
Outstanding. So, like I said, this series is intended to expand upon some of the framework, the pillars, if you will, of what makes curriculum-informed AI. And AI is, to say it's a buzzword is even passe at this point. You know, I think AI was a buzzword maybe late 2022, early 2023. So this is not necessarily like, oh, we really need to have something to say about AI. This is, we're doing something about it. We're gonna actually start being serious about it and integrate it deeply with the products and services that we offer. So with that in mind, Jason, Adam, whoever wants to take a swing at it first, can you give me kind of the elevator, 30,000 foot, whatever marketing metaphor you want to use of what is curriculum-informed AI?
Sure, maybe I could take the first stab at that. I think curriculum-informed AI to me is AI that's using a variety of learning science, high quality instructional material, research, efficacy outcomes, and other important material and content to leverage AI in a way that creates safety, creates confidence, and works in the classroom. That includes things like grounding, which is an AI term for making sure that when we use the AI, it's based in something that we know and we trust. And it includes a concept of what's called guardrails, which is this idea that when AI is working on our behalf, we want it to stay within a set of rules that allow us to have confidence around how it will work and the safety thereof. It's not going to create content that's inappropriate for a learner, or it's not going to have hallucinations or bias or other negative impacts. So curriculum-informed AI as a philosophy for us is the encapsulation of all of that. How do we take our expertise in learning, our expertise in content, all of the different assets that we bring to market that our customers know and love, and use AI to supplement and enhance that in ways that are safe and powerful for administrators, for teachers, for students, and for parents. But Adam, I think when you think about curriculum-informed AI, your time in the classroom kind of colors how you might imagine that. And so I'm curious if you have anything that you would add to that definition.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on that, I think the curriculum informed part really gets at it not being a generic version of AI. And so what that means is for a teacher in the classroom is, I am Adam, I teach in this particular state, particular district, I teach this particular grade, this particular subject, we use this particular materials. Pedagogically, our approach is inquiry based, or it's more direct, or I have students with these particular learning needs and I have this kind of diverse classroom in front of me, which is very localized and very specific to me. And so I need my tools, my AI tools, to understand and recognize all that. And you've just laid out all of those buckets which encapsulate all of that. So that when I ask my AI for assistance, when I ask it to generate stuff for me, it knows all of that, it understands that. And so it's not just creating something that fits a maths teacher for anywhere in the world, it's creating something for me and my students. And that is, you know, being able to take that context and take that situation is one of the hardest parts of teaching. And it's what makes great teachers, is that they can adapt for specific kids in specific situations. And you need an AI assistant, an AI tool, an AI product that can help you in that, rather than just even potentially taking a step backwards by making it more generic and more one size fits all. And
Outstanding. You'd think we had rehearsed this, but we actually have not. The whole point of this is to be conversational. However, Adam just gave me the perfect segue. You mentioned you either said general or generic forms of AI. And it just so happens here, my first question to you all after the introduction there is, how is curriculum informed AI different from generic AI used in education? Maybe expand a bit more, either Adam or Jason, whoever wants to take a run at it first. Is, let's be real. There are AI tools out there. There are an endless number of them. For us to sit here and list them all would be the entire discussion. But maybe set a bit more groundwork or a bit more foundation of what is out there as far as general AI is concerned, and then how does curriculum informed AI address or approach things differently from
existing
tools and services?
Okay, I can continue on my
sure. You're still on the soapbox. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I suppose maybe it's helpful to start with an overview of generally how the modern AI tools work and how they're trained and how they are able to do what they do, and maybe the simplest, shortest explanation of how they get their knowledge is that they are trained on the entirety of the internet, is one way of putting it. So they're trained on the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything out there, and that means that they are wide-ranging and have seemingly unlimited knowledge and capabilities. But as I was just saying, when I'm a specific teacher in a specific context, some of that wide-ranging and divert, and some of that knowledge may be unhelpful to me. It may be confusing matters, and it may not be increasing the accuracy and the specificity and the requirements that I have. And so curriculum informed AI specifically will do things like take your specific curriculum that your district or your school has approved, and then the one that you use day to day, the one you have been using, and it will know what that is, and it will know to the fine details what the content of those student workbooks are, what the content of those teacher guides are. So all of your classroom facing material is known and understood, and the AI will prioritize that. It will know it as trusted, vetted source of truth information. And alongside that, there are other bits of information that it will understand and know and prioritize accordingly. Your state standards, for example, or training that you may have received from professional development coaches, both from your school, your district, from Imagine Learning. All of that information is crucial and what makes you and your practice in your district what it is. And so curriculum informed AI at a more tactical level has access to all of that and relies on that and uses that as its initial source of truth for everything that it does. And so that's kind of totally the opposite of what a generic product would be able to do.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to frame it, Adam. One way that I think about it is what the labs, if you think of OpenAI and Anthropic and Meta and Microsoft and Google as being technology labs that are making this technology for us, what they're really making is a general purpose technology. And they're not actually thinking through in great detail the application of that technology broadly across every domain. They're thinking about some specific domains. For Microsoft, it's the Office applications. What does it look like to have higher intelligence in those applications? What we think curriculum informed AI represents is the ability to think about how you leverage that intelligence within the ecosystem of education. And so everything Adam said is spot on. And one thing he didn't mention that I'll add is performance data and student use data that might also inform the efficacy of content or the efficacy of an approach. That's another aspect that we think of as part of this curriculum informed approach, where we're really using a very, very broad definition of curriculum. But it's this intersection of how do you take a general purpose technology and apply it in a domain specific application to leverage all of the deep expertise that there is in that domain to really improve the results that you get. And that's what we think sets us apart from the general purpose tools that are out there.
Great. I want to, I got a follow-up, kind of a comment and a follow-up question. Adam, you had mentioned, the internet is vast, and there's probably an overwhelming no, what do I want to say here? The ratio of ways to do math incorrectly probably vastly outweighs the number of ways to do math correctly. Math is a great example, right? Where sort of the answer is the answer. There might be a couple different ways to get there, a couple different approaches and techniques to arrive at a correct answer. But if you have something trained on the entirety of the internet, it's pulling the 90% junk, misinformation, poor, incorrect ways to perform mathematical functions and equations and approaches. And it's going to more or less equally weight that with the ways that are correct. And it's not, intelligent enough necessarily to know this is not the way to do this versus this is the way to do this. And so what curriculum informed AI, part of what it's doing is essentially saying, well, we're only going to train it on the ways that math is actually done and done correctly. And we're not going to be affected by, I almost said infected, but affected by all of this junk that might be out there. So not really a question there so much as just a comment on it. However, the question there is, well, I guess the additional comment would be is that one of the latest things I've seen come up in the world of AI as a concern is we're rapidly approaching a reality where we have AI that's been trained on AI, where it's digesting its own bad results and sort of setting up this recursive, I don't know, like a nightmare of it's bad, false, completely hallucinated information that's then generating additionally bad, false, hallucinated information. So, again, one of the key things it sounds like with our approach, with the machine learning's approach, is that's not going to happen because we're much more focused and targeted on what this thing is built on, what it's trained on.
So I think one thing that I definitely didn't mention, which is a key point in curriculum informed AI, is I've talked a lot about the source materials and the documents, but it's not just about the materials and the content, which is the starting point. Also, in the development of our tools, our people, our expertise as an organization gets layered in. So to your point about, there's a lot of bad ways to solve a math problem and there's a lot of good ways to solve a math problem. Well, there are instructional designers and educationalists and pedagogical experts here at Imagine Learning. There are a large number of them who are involved in producing our content, and their brains, their opinions, their experience in what separates those bad strategies from those good strategies, that goes into the design of our AI products. And that's how the output can become, of a much higher quality and much more specific to our users, which is exactly to Jason's point that no one at Microsoft is sitting there with, an expertise of K-12 instructional design thinking, how should we make this output what a K-12 teacher would think, whereas we do have those experts and those people are fed in. So yes, to your point, AI will maybe start training itself on itself, but we shouldn't forget also that, in my opinion, very good AI will always keep a human involved in that process, so that and feed that. And in this case, that's instructional designers and expert teachers and educationalists.
Well, I'll just say that the opposite is also true. So at Microsoft, there are people who are thinking about how this technology gets built with a level of expertise and understanding that we don't have in our building. The ability to train these systems at scale, and as Sean said, to use the kind of scope and scale of the knowledge that the internet contains to build a system that does what a large language model does. That's their core expertise, and so this cuts in both directions. And I think when we think about this, what we believe is the foundation models, because of the way they're built and because of the power of that technology, they provide tremendous value. And so we don't want to look past that value. What instead we want to do is think about how we integrate that value into a system where we can make it safe for use in the classroom. And part of that is making it impactful in the classroom. So, the example that I would give is if we've got a math problem and it uses an example that's either not culturally relevant or not interesting to my class, The large language model, because it's trained on such a breadth of information, has other contexts and other ways to kind of put that example into practice for students that we want to take advantage of. We want to be able to take the American football example that I might use and turn it into a soccer example for Adam that we can make more relevant. And so those types of transformations are enabled by the training that these systems have. But what we want to do is make sure that the difficulty level of that problem doesn't change. The mathematical representations that are used are not different and unaligned with what students saw yesterday or last week. That the pedagogical approach that's used fits the classroom delivery that I'm aiming towards, that my district is aligned around, that my PD and PL has supported. So it's really about how you take the power of the technology and you harness it in the context of deep educational expertise and use that to improve learning experiences. And again, that's part of this philosophy of curriculum informed AI, is bringing that vision to life.
I'll do Adam the solid and say Jason should have said American football and then just football. It's soccer.
Yeah.
That's all right. Awesome. So again, you'd think we rehearsed this, but I promise that we did not. But you guys are just naturally setting me up for the next sort of section of the discussion here. So we're already kind of getting into the risks associated with the use of AI, of which we've already, I think we've enumerated pretty well what those could be. And to cite our own a white paper on this that we published recently is a Pew Research Center survey recently revealed that the percentage of teens aged 13 to 17 using things like ChatGPT for schoolwork doubled from 13% in 2023 to 26% in 2024. I think we can reasonably assume it's probably going to at least double this year, if not even exponentially take off. At the same time, school leaders cite a lack of trusted curriculum-aligned solutions as a key barrier to scaling AI beyond early pilots. So we've already kind of touched on it, but maybe if there's a few more either concrete examples or things we haven't mentioned yet, like in what other ways do we mitigate the risks of students going outside to their own solutions, whatever, bringing that in, while also empowering our educators, admins, district level leaders, against the kinds of things that AI can introduce that we don't want.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic, partly because it's so broad. I mean, there's so many different layers to this. One thing that we think about in terms of the dangers of this technology is where there might be bias and how we look for that bias. And I'll give an example. We were using some image generation technology to create avatars for some of our products, which is really powerful because the more students that can pick an avatar that they feel really represents themselves, the more that they see themselves in the educational material that they're interacting with. However, when we used those models, you really have to work to get them to generate images of people of color or people of different cultural and national descent. Or even to do things like to represent assistive devices that different students might need. The range of things from wheelchairs to different crutches or braces or hearing aids. The models don't have a lot of examples of that type of stuff in them. And so you've got to work hard to make sure that you're engaging with the tools and you're scrutinizing the output enough that you're getting broad representation. So we think about bias in a lot of different ways. It can be bias of the way that the types of feedback are given. Does the feedback skew towards students who might have certain prior knowledge or not, depending on where they grew up? There's just so many ways that can play. So that's one example. Another really important educational example is that certain themes or topics might be appropriate at one grade level and completely inappropriate at a different grade level. Something like violence, if a student in middle or high school is engaging with literature that deals with themes of violence, that might be acceptable. And you might welcome an essay where they're grappling with the topics around that and they're engaging with that. But if a younger student is writing something and they're implying that they might act out in a way that's inappropriate, that's a different topic. And so a big thing that the kind of commercial technology doesn't do is think about the age appropriateness of certain themes and content and attach that. Now, they provide a lot of tools for moderation when they generate content to evaluate that content against different criteria for appropriateness, but we feel there's another level that needs to be applied for the types of use cases where we might be applying this. So this is one of those topics where I think there are many risks, and there's a lot of things that we think about deeply when you imagine the kind of process that students go through as they mature and as they learn and as they grow and as they develop, that are really critical when you're imagining how this technology plays out in a K-12 classroom setting than what the kind of off-the-shelf technology might do.
So earlier, another thing, and you kind of touched on it there, Jason, a little bit, but Adam, earlier you had mentioned, I believe Adam, you had mentioned this, is one of the other ways that we sort of shore up or defend against, these potential risks is we have people, flesh and blood human beings on the other end of this, that are, shepherding, curating, maintaining, whatever kind of word you want to use there. Maybe can we speak a little bit more on like the actual role that those people play? So Jason touched on, one of the things that differentiates our offering from others is we're really going to consider who you are, where you are, who your students are, what their needs are, and what the standards are in the state or region that you're in. How do we connect up those needs from our customers with the people on the other side of this AI technology? And maybe at a high level, we don't necessarily have to get into the weeds on it, but a high level, like what is the interaction there?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it can be done in the data and can be done in the technical side of things. So, by virtue of already being in a digital platform and interacting with your curriculum and your content online, even in historical systems, they already know relatively well. They can know a relatively high amount about you already and your context and all those things that you said. So. Part of what we do and part of what's valuable is to be able to connect those different systems, connect the context, go down to the individual student level data, and responsibly and within the accepted ways within the education industry and the accepted laws and frameworks of how you deal with student data, for example. An ed tech company can use that responsibly to enhance the outputs, whereas to go back to previous points, doing that stuff is difficult if you don't have that expertise of how to deal with student level data, as one example. And if you don't do it at that level, then the quality and the appropriateness of the outcome is going to be lower. So that's one way we get that expertise. But then to go back to your question about how the people are involved, we have a lot of people at Imagine Learning who have personal relationships with the districts and the teachers who are using our products, and all of that information filters up. I mean, right this week we're talking with actual users and actual teachers who are engaging with our product, and that information comes straight back to us in terms of how appropriate is the response, how valuable would it be to them in the classroom, and all of the risks that Jason's been talking through would be the sorts of things that they would identify as well. And we get that human feedback on all of those issues. And that coming straight to the people who are making the product means that we can act on it and do something about it. So I think the connection comes in lots of ways, and in AI done properly and products built properly will take all of those things into consideration.
Yeah, one point that I like to make to the teams that we work with is that there's parts of this that are not new. I mean, a good software design still involves testing. It involves user input. It involves subject matter experts. And there's nothing different about this technology. And I think that's one thing that folks need to keep an eye out for, is when companies are rushing this technology to market, and they're not going through the same steps that they would have gone through to build any other software that they release. They're often cutting corners, and that shows up in some of the risks that then appear and the implications downstream. So we're taking an approach that's kind of a traditional product development approach, and we're trying to apply all the best practices that we know lead to software that really solves a problem for teachers and students effectively in the classroom. And all of those techniques and more that Adam described are being applied here.
So to strain a metaphor, we're not just giving you the keys to an AI generated Ferrari and saying good luck.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're putting you on the course.
That's a very
teaching
strange
you to
metaphor.
drive it.
Yeah.
Testing how we build it. All of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you can believe it, we're going to get down to our last question here. At least the ones I have planned, of course. So early on, Jason, you mentioned high quality instructional materials, or HQIM. And when we talk about that idea of HQIM, we typically speak about them in terms of aligning with standards, increased accessibility, ease of use, and above all, evidence-based instructional models. And so with that in mind, what role does HQIM play with this idea of curriculum informed AI, and what's the Venn diagram look like between those two ideas for imagined learning?
Yeah, they overlap considerably. I think you've heard us talk about a few different themes around using off-the-shelf technology combined with expertise to create a better result. And I think the same is true with high-quality instructional material. When you have evidence-based, high-quality material that you can use to base your instruction from, it aligns, and you hit on that. It's consistent, and so as students progress through it, it's reinforcing, it's building upon, it's helping to expand concepts. That's critical. But then the evidence-based nature of it is also really important. The data that we collect about what leads to certain types of outcomes, and then how we create repeatability and consistency there, is a big part of this as well. We know that teachers want to have the ability to customize the classroom experience. They want to tailor the curriculum they're using to the classroom, to their students, to that actual group of students, not any generic student, but the student who's right there in front of them. But we also know that when they go to the web and they just search for that content is often not vetted, not high quality, not aligned, and that just puts more work on them. They might find an interesting activity, but now they have to go further to tailor that. And so we believe by bringing these two things together, the high quality instructional material that we create in programs like our Imagine IM product, along with the technology that we're developing, we can help teachers get to the level of personalization and customization that they demand for their students, but in a way that meets all the other criteria that they used when they picked the curriculum they're teaching from in the first place. So that's my perspective as a product leader. But Adam, you have been in the classroom. How do you think about the relationship?
Yeah, I think what you're touching on here is, I think there's this always this difficult tension when you're talking about materials teachers are using between, at the one end of the spectrum, you could say to a teacher, here's a textbook. It's been written by an expert. It's approved. It's the best material you can have. Follow it step by step. Follow it as a script. You have no license to deviate from this material. And the advantage of that is it's been written by an expert. It's very good, and it's going to be the right content, and that the pedagogy and the scaffolding and all of it is probably quite good. But the drawback is that it's not customized, it's not personalized, it doesn't take into account that particular student, that particular classroom. So then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the situation where you give teachers free rein to create whatever materials they want, and it's left into the teacher's professional judgment to create something which would be standards aligned and would be appropriate and would deliver on the learning outcomes needed. Now, that could be highly customized and highly personalized, but it's incredibly hard to do. It's really hard work, and it takes a real level of expertise to be able to do that for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's really hard. And so the tension is, where in the middle of those two things can we sit, and where can we do that at scale across all of the schools and all of the districts and all the students in the world. And so what I think this technology does, and what high quality instructional materials does, and with AI, is it takes that first scenario of this is expert material, but it allows you to shift into this personalized end of the spectrum, but it allows teachers to be able to do it at scale, and it allows them to be able to do it efficiently and effectively and with trust and confidence that what they're doing is still going to have all of those good things that the source material has in terms of rigor and accuracy and the ability to help students move forward. So I think that's like how and then that as a teacher, I think is I would find that invaluable, and I'd find that gold, because it gives me the best of both worlds, and allows me to almost give one-to-one personalized instruction, but without needing to repeat my work 30 times.
Flawless, no notes. I have nothing to follow up with that on. Gentlemen, unless we want, we can move on, and if there's anything we didn't cover you thought you might want to bring to the table with the discussion today, we might be able to, we can wrap ourselves up here, if you can believe it. We've been talking for about half an hour.
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Adam, that was a heck of a way to end things off there. That was fantastic. Yeah, well done. And this is all, we're leaving all this in, including this, because we're going to be as transparent as we can be. But I guess I do want to at least close with, is there anything that you wanted to add, something you wanted to return to, maybe into the discussion you had filed away a thought in your brain, and you're like, oh, if we get to that, I'm going to say it. Otherwise we can probably wrap things up here. That was fantastic. So
yeah, not for me. I think this was great, and I'm looking forward to the other videos in the series where we get to go deeper on some of these topics. So thanks for facilitating, Sean. This was terrific.
Absolutely. Jason, Adam, thank you for your time. And speaking of the next video, I'll set it up here a little bit. So our next session will be what does AI that empowers high impact instruction look like? And we'll be joined again by Jason, Dr. Nari Carter, who's our Senior Director of Research, and Ryan De La Garza, our Digital Curriculum Development Director. We can look forward to that in a few weeks. But with that, we'll go ahead and close it out here. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And we'll take it from here afterwards. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.